Hi there, Laura here, mom of two, holistic nutritionist, and founder of the Lavish Method, where I teach women who just want to lose weight a simple way of eating that doesn't involve giving up wine or chocolate. Today, I want to share with you a little bit about dairy and how it may or may not fit into your high-fat diet. Ready? Amazing. So first off, let's talk about a couple of different types of dairy, because in my world, there's two different dairy categories. We have high-fat dairy, which is here, or we have high-sugar dairy, which would be over here. And you might be saying, wait, what? Sugar? Yes, dairy by nature is full of sugar. Lactose is a sugar. You may have heard of that before because it's a sugar that a lot of people cannot digest, but it's still a sugar. So you can either have high-fat dairy, where it contains more fat than anything else and therefore is classified as a fat, or you can have dairy that's low-fat or no-fat, and therefore it's going to be mainly a sugar. So let's talk first about the high sugar options, because I think you know what I'm going to say here. In this case, it's not going to fit into your high-fat diet. It just won't. It's going to cause the same issues that the carbohydrates are causing for you, which is increased insulin spikes and increased fat storage and being stuck where you are and all of those things. So we're going to keep things like cottage cheese, especially see low fat. This is only 1%. If it was a higher fat cottage cheese, we might be able to classify it as a fat. But because it's only 1%, and in this case, therefore has 8 grams of sugar and only 1 gram of carbs, we are going to say bye-bye to this. Now let's talk about the high-fat dairy options, because in these cases, these are mainly fats. So there's either no sugar or very little sugar left in them because it's mainly the fat portion. So this is some heavy whipping cream, for example. This has 5 grams of fat and only 1 grams of sugar. So you can see that this is definitely going to be a fat. You've got your butter here, right, which is 8 grams of fat, and in this case there's no grams of sugar, so this is a pure fat. And then you've got some yogurt here I thought I'd bring out. Now this is a 2%. So this has 3.5 grams of fat, and it has 5 grams of sugar. So this is kind of right on the edge, but you'll remember that fat is more calorie dense than carbohydrates. So even though it only has 3.5 grams of fat, that still is just under 40 calories coming from fat. The carbohydrates in this is way less calorie dense. So it has 5 grams of carbohydrates, and that would only be actually 20 calories coming from carbs. So it still is more of a fat source than a carb source, which is really cool. So if we're talking about dairy and high-fat diets like keto, there are a couple of things you want to be aware of. A lot of people have no problem having dairy on a high-fat diet. And if you are one of those people, then, you know, if you choose to eat dairy in your life, it's totally fine to include it. So how do you know if you have a problem with dairy in a high-fat keto lifestyle? Well, if weight loss is your goal and you're not hitting your goal as quickly as you want to, or you're stuck, or you're not seeing much movement on the scale, in my practice and with myself, dairy is one of the first things that I look at, because dairy is something that we call insulinogenic, meaning it can still spike insulin levels, and that's because of the proteins actually contained within dairy. So even though there's not a ton of sugar, even though it's not affecting your blood sugar in that capacity, it actually still can affect insulin, causing insulin levels to spike and moving your body, shifting it more towards fat storage instead of fat burning. Does that make sense? I hope so. So what you can do if you are currently including dairy in your high-fat diet and you're not seeing the movement you want to see, try cutting out dairy just for a week or two and see what happens with the number on the scale or the inches around your waist or wherever you're measuring fat loss from. See how you feel, see if your energy level is better, see if your cravings go down, because those are other indications that your insulin level isn't regulated. So it's definitely something to be aware of and then to kind of adjust accordingly. Some people find that, they can't go heavy on the dairy, but they're able to have a little bit of cream, you know, in their coffee in the morning, or they're able to have, you know, a treat like a little bit of higher fat yogurt or some cheese throughout the week, but not on the daily. The other thing you want to be aware, if you're kind of trying to figure out where you sit with dairy, is that the more fat-based it is, the less of the dairy proteins left in it, and the less insulinogenic it is for most people. So something like butter, even though it is technically dairy, this is basically just fat. Like, there is very little proteins left in here, if any. So if, you know, you're wondering whether or not you should have butter in your life, it's probably not as big a deal as, say, the yogurt, which in this case, we have 10 grams of protein in a serving of this. So you are getting quite a bit of dairy protein, meaning if dairy protein is insulinogenic in your body, you're gonna get quite the insulin spike when you eat something like this versus really nothing at all happening when you eat something like this, because the protein is 0.1 grams. So basically, if you're just starting out, feel free to incorporate dairy, include dairy if dairy works well in your body and you love it, and see how your progress goes. Wait 2 or 3 weeks. Are you happy with your results? Is your energy great? Are your cravings down? Is your hunger really manageable? If all those things are happening, then, you know, feel free to continue eating the way you're eating because it's working and your biochemistry is clearly allowing you to have dairy in your life. If there's a few things that aren't, if you're not completely happy with where you are, then try cutting out, I would say, all dairy at the beginning, just for a week or 2. See what happens. If you start to see movement on the scale, you know, if your energy goes up, if your cravings go down, then the next thing you can do is make a decision. Either keep dairy out of the equation until you've hit your goals, or reintroduce high-fat dairy, like the butter, you know, something, or a little bit of cream here and there or whatnot, and see what happens there. And, you know, if things are still great, then you can even try reintroducing some of the higher protein dairy, but only as an occasional treat. And so by kind of measuring what's happening in your body, by how you're feeling, and, you know, by how things are shifting, you can pretty much figure out the dairy quotient that's going to work for you. So hopefully this makes sense. Thank you guys for hanging out with me. I know your time is crazy valuable and I do appreciate it. If you love what I'm about and, you know, you want to know more, definitely attend one of my free webinars. I run my free webinars every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern. We talk about the 5 steps that I use with myself and with all of my clients to achieve lasting fat loss without hunger, without cravings, without any of those things. So you can register for that at my website, www.lavishnutrition.com. Also, be sure to subscribe right down there to this YouTube channel if you want to be notified every time I post a new video, which is basically every single week. So until next time, have a wonderful day, and we'll talk real soon. Bye.